zoom through transition is one I've covered before, actually covered it twice before, but I still get a lot of questions on it, so I decided to do this video to have more of a quicker frame of reference. The last two times I talked about the effect was actually in like a collage video with other effects, so this here just strictly focuses on this one transition. I got some stock video footage. I'm gonna get it prepared for our transition. With my first clip selected, I'm going to the color page. I'm going to the powers window, and I'm gonna select the circle mask, masking out this little logo here. So the circle mask would do great for that. I'm gonna stroll back on my mouse wheel so I can actually view the mask. And then using this little indicator here, I'm gonna shrink the mask down in size. I'm gonna stroll back on my mouse wheel. With the crosshairs up, I'm gonna actually move it to center it along with the logo. I'm gonna click in the mouse wheel and you actually move the screen around. I'm bringing it out just a little bit, and that should be good there. This big ring on the outside actually indicates the softness of it. You go down here and look at the tab. It says 2.07, it's the softness. I don't need that much softness for it, so I'm actually gonna bring it down to just around the edge. And from there, I'm gonna go to the tracking tab. I'm gonna track back and forward on that mask. Once my mask is done tracking, I'm gonna go over here to my node flow. I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna select add alpha output. You need this little blue indicator to come up. I'm gonna take this indicator here and connect the two, thus giving me my alpha output. I'm back on the edit page. From here, I'm gonna select this clip and hold Alt on the keyboard, move up to make a copy. Then I'm gonna take the copy into the color page. Within the color page, back in the palette windows, I'm actually hit this indicator here and it's gonna invert my mask. So I go back to the edit page. If I select this bottom clip and hit D to disable, I see I have an alpha output. So I'm gonna hit D to re-enable that. I'm gonna select both these clips, right click, new Fusion clip. Then I'm gonna select the Fusion icon to go into Fusion. Now within Fusion, I actually need to indicate which one is which. So I have two viewers. If you don't have the dual viewer and you like the single view, you can just go over to this icon here, cut it on, and to access your dual view. I'm gonna select the media one. I'm gonna click one on the keyboard, and I can see that's the logo. So then I'm gonna hit F2 and type in logo. Now for this effect to work, I actually need the logo in the foreground, but since it's connected to the yellow output that indicates background, and then click on my merge one, and I'm gonna hit Control T. It's gonna flip the inputs. So now media 2 is in the background. To create the logo flip, I need to use a DVE node. So I'm gonna hit Control and space, type in DVE. The DVE node is actually similar to the transform node, but you can actually move on the X, Y, and Z axis. So I hit add. It's in the wrong spot, so I'm gonna actually hold shift and move it to under the logo. If I click on it and go into the inspector tab, you see I have the Z move along with the X and Y axis. We also have the rotations as well. I want my effect to end at frame 60. So I'm gonna actually go back about 10 to 15 frames. I'm gonna go over frame 44. In my inspector tab, I'm gonna set a keyframe under the Z move, and then I'm gonna set a keyframe under the X axis rotation. I'm gonna go back to frame 60, and I'm actually move this up. It's actually gonna bring it more towards the screen. And then I'm also go down here to my X axis and type in 360. So as it animates, it flips towards the screen. I want to be more centered, so actually I'm gonna go over here and move my pivot point, Y axis. I'm gonna move to the right, move it slightly up above. So now it zooms out like that. Now after frame 60, I want to begin to zoom in on the tire. So I'm gonna place my plate marker back on frame 60. I'm gonna select the media 2 and I'm gonna grab a transform node. With the transform node selected, I'm gonna go to the inspector tab, and under size, I'm gonna create a keyframe. Then I'm gonna go roughly about 10, 15 frames. I'm gonna go to frame 74, and then I'm gonna zoom in. I needed to move in on the center where the alpha is. I'm gonna move the pivot point in the inspector tab on the X and Y axis to actually center it. Now, once I have it centered, I'm gonna go back into the inspector tab, and notice this course doesn't go in far enough. And I'm gonna double click on the size, and I'm gonna type in 22. I think it's not far enough. Actually, you want it to go all the way past the frame. And this clip is actually zooming out from the car, so that's why I have to type in 30 or 33. In most situations, you don't have to go that high. Roughly about 10 to 15 usually be good enough. But that gives me my animation of the logo flip and then zoom in. So now we have our animations. We're gonna go into the spline editor. I get the transform ones already selected. I'm gonna hit zoom to fit so I can see all my keyframes. Go to the indicator and select all, and then hit F to flatten. I actually have 3 keyframes here. I actually created another one under frame 83 because my clip is zooming outward, so I placed another keyframe to make sure it remains outside the frame. From there, I'm gonna select my DVE node, select it in the spline. Back over here to hit zoom to fit. I'm gonna select all, and this time with the keyframe selected, I'm gonna right click, go to ease, and then end cubic. It's gonna get a nice subtle slow beginning to the animation, then it'll speed up towards the end. I'm gonna close my spline editor. I'm gonna select the merge one, and then I'm actually going to select a transform. I'm put this transform on the end. I'm gonna use it as my motion blur. This is a good workaround to add motion blur to your composition without having to activate motion blur on both these nodes, which would be more taxing on the computer. So with the transform tool selected, I can go into the settings, turn on motion blur. For mine, I'm gonna type in 4. I'm gonna tab down and hit 260. And effectively, it's gonna add a motion blur to everything in front of it. So anytime you're working with composition, you can add this transform tool towards the end, near your media out, and it'll add motion blur to your whole composition. If you're getting the value out of today's video, make sure you hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. I appreciate it. Now back on the edit page, you just basically wanna have the clip that you're gonna transition into below whatever clip you're creating the transition from. There's the playback, the logo animates out, and then it zooms in. Now for me, we're gonna create a zoom out effect. Setup for the zoom out transition is exactly the same. Create your mask, track your mask, connect your alpha point, make a copy of it, and invert. So now we're gonna jump straight into Fusion to set up the zoom out transition. Now, since we're creating a zoom out effect, we're actually gonna be working backwards. For this one, I'm just gonna use a transform node. So I'm gonna select the logo and grab a transform node. This time I have the logo in the background is indicated by the yellow input. And in my very first frame, I'm gonna go over to the inspector tab and actually gonna drop it down the y-axis. I'm gonna make sure I'm drop it down enough where it's out of frame, which can be indicated by this little X here. I'm gonna give this animation a full second. So with media 2 selected, I'm gonna grab a transform node. And since I'm in the 24 FPS timeline, I'm gonna go to frame 24. I'm gonna go over to size and select keyframe. I'm gonna go back to frame 0. And then I'm gonna zoom in. And once again, I had to move my pivots. I'm gonna move on the y-axis to move it up and try to place the center of my transparency. And of course, this doesn't go up high enough. So I'm gonna type in 10, see how far I go, about 15, 22 should be good. So now I'm gonna go back to frame 24, it's gonna zoom out. Go back to my transform 1. I'm gonna set a keyframe on the y-axis, make sure it remains in place. I'm gonna give it a couple of frames to about, I'm gonna give it a couple of frames to frame 40. And then I'm gonna right click and go to set to default. So it's gonna zoom out and then the logo gonna move back in. Now, once again, you wanna grab the transform node, place it on the end. Now in this variation, I only have one transform node. I use the transform node to create the zoom out transition. My media 1, which I have set as eye, which I have in the foreground, and to animate the opacity of the eye, just simply went to my merge node and you're gonna animate the blend. So here I got a keyframe set at 40, it's at 0%, and then it goes up to 57. It's set at 1, even though you have all this extra space here. If you type in the numbers, you can go up higher than 1. And if you do on this one, it actually more or less corrects you like a film grain. I'm gonna set it back at 1. And then on my spline editor, I use the ease in, the ease out, to more or less correct this curve. Actually, I'm gonna put a little more sharpness into it. Then I'm gonna bring this in just a little bit more. And this animation curve here helps slow down the opacity. I did the same thing with the animation curve on this one as well. I use the ease in, the ease out to more or less bring this to a point to slow down the transition itself. I actually stretched out the keyframes as well. Instead of going just for 24, I got it set at 40, from 0 to 40. Also with this, I didn't cut on motion blur. If I wanted to, I go into settings and I can cut on motion blur. And since it's moving relatively slower, you still won't get that much of a motion blur anyway. If you're working on the project and in need of help, feel free to go to my Discord. The link will be in the description. I have a tab that says need help. There you can post screenshots of videos of what you need help with. I'll try to reply back. If not me, maybe someone else in the community. My Discord has been very neglected. I'm trying to get better about that. But link is in the description. That's gonna do it for this video. Check out this video here on how to create a motion visualizer, and I'll see you next time.